Hello, Zoo Med fans. We're here at AnimalCon 2023, and we're in the afternoon of the first day. And I have to say, we're here with the man, the myth, the legend, the creator. We wouldn't be standing here having this conversation if it wasn't for this gentleman right here, Mr. Brian Barczyk.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to be here. And you know, Zoo Med was our first big sponsor when we started this idea, and so forever we will always have Zoo Med as the main sponsor because we appreciate the faith that you had in a vision that really no one had done before, right? We are not putting a reptile show on, we're not putting an aquatic show on, we're putting an influencer show on. And you know, I know that was a stretch for Zoo Med and all sponsors to say, like, what is this gonna be? And the fact that you guys supported me, not just through this, but really everything I've ever done. You guys have been there. So we'll continue to reciprocate and appreciate you forever, for sure.
Where does an idea like this even stem from? Like, where did this come from?
Well, so it really isn't as far of a stretch as you think. So I was going to two conventions that were YouTube conventions because I'm a YouTuber, and it was VidCon in LA, and then Playlist Live that ironically enough was in this building when it started, the exact same convention. Ultimately, it grew bigger and moved just down the street. I've been going there as a YouTuber, and so you would go and there'd be 200, 300, whatever it was, YouTubers, you know, big YouTubers, especially back 10 years ago before TikTok and all these other things. There was just YouTube. So you would have the biggest names. I mean, the guys that were like the top of their list. And you would go, and I was always invited, but I was a small guy, you know what I mean? But I got along and I collaborated with people and I met people and it really grew my YouTube channel. And I thought to myself, can we do this but just for animals? Because, you know, my YouTube career grew so much with the people we met at Playlist and VidCon, the big YouTubers that weren't animal people,
Sure.
but they were like, hey, I'd like to do a video with a snake. You're a snake guy, hey, come out to LA and we'll do this. And so now I'm getting exposed to Logan Paul, Jake Paul, David Dobrik, you know, I mean, the biggest names in the business, now Mr. Beast,
That's amazing.
you know, stuff like that. And I thought, I want to do the same thing, but to animals, because I think that it not only is a cool thing that all the fans can come and meet all their favorite animal influencers in one spot, but probably just as important, influencers can commingle and then start collaborating with one another. And maybe even more importantly, you've got the guy that has 20,000 followers that's just getting going. He's collaborating with the guy that has 1 million followers. And now next, you know, and we've seen that, you know, last year we saw people that had 100,000 followers that now have over 1 million, you know, in 1 year. And they've been, you know, friends, and I've seen people travel together that met each other at this. So that was the idea behind the entire event.
Well, it's been amazing today. I've done interviews all day, and I have to tell you, I had 2 separate people that I interviewed drop your name as a reason why they are doing what they're doing right now, why they've become creators, what you were their inspiration to even begin. One that said he came here to AnimalCon last year, and that's when he started. He came here, he met you and some other people that were creating, and he was inspired.
Yeah, you know, I always say, like, you know, I mean, I'm 54 years old, and so I don't feel old. I feel young, but at the same time, I feel like they're all my children in a way, right? You know what I mean? It's like I'm so proud of all these, you know, 18, 20, 22-year-old, 25-year-old kids that are the same age as my kids.
Right.
And they're doing so good. And when they do come to me and say, hey, you helped inspired me, or, you know, I used to watch you when I was 12 or something like that, I think, like, it's like a proud dad, you know what I mean? I've got that thing, and I care about them all. You know, number one, I'm fans of them all. You know, I watch their content, I absorb their content, and I'm just proud of them. And I know that they'll carry the torch for a long time.
It's a great proud papa moment. You gotta love it.
Yep.
I mean, everybody knows who you are now. You know, the great Brian Barczyk. Where some of our fans may not know, where did you begin? Like, how did you get into reptiles? Like, where was the beginning?
You know, the beginning started at a pet shop. Well, it started in the woods around my house, but started at a pet shop when I was 14 years old, called The Pet Vendor in Centerline, Michigan. And I used to walk by this pet shop every day on my way home from school, and I used to stop at the pet shop. And it was one of only 2 pet shops at the time, because this is back in the, again, you know, early 80s. It was one of only 2 pet shops that carried reptiles in the state of Michigan. It just happened to be on my way home. So I used to stop, and every day I would stop for a half hour. You know, my mom would always be, why did it take you so long to get home? I would be like, I stopped at the pet vendor. And so after a year of doing that, I was 13 or whatever. I finally turned 14 and a little over 14, and the owner was like, "Hey, we need a guy that can just clean some reptile cages. You interested in the job?" And I'm like, "After school and weekends, I'm in," And so I started doing that, and then ironically enough, I met a guy, you probably know the name, Mark Bell.
Absolutely.
Who's, Mark Bell was actually lived in Michigan, right down the road from me, and he supplied our pet shop with snakes. And so I met Mark, and then I started going over to Mark's house, and then he kind of mentored me and took me under his wing, and I just wanted to work with reptiles. I didn't care what it was. I didn't care if I was a zookeeper, a breeder, an influencer. There was no such thing as an influencer at the time. I just wanted to work with reptiles. So Mark was really, without Mark, I probably wouldn't be standing here right now. So that's how it started. It started in the woods, the pet shop, Mark and Kim Bell, and then the rest has just been kind of like whatever path I can take to work with animals, that's the path I'm going to take. I will say the path I'm on right now, education, reptile zoo, is by far my favorite iteration of my life.
Sure.
It's not that I wasn't happy before. Just working with animals made me happy. But right now, today, what I do, having people come into my reptarium, having people, watch us on things, come to AnimalCon. This is where I was meant to be with animals, and I'm so grateful.
You started in animals, you started in a pet store, and then you were breeding, and you've been through all those channels. When did you see the opening? When did social media kind of open up to you, and you're like, this is something I could do, and this is something I could do well, and I would really like this? How did that develop?
Well, it's funny, so I started really before social media started, really, in a way. I started YouTubing when YouTube was less than a year old.
Right.
And so there was no future, there was no money, it was cute cat videos. And what happened was, quite honestly, Steve Irwin died. I was a huge Steve Irwin fan. Obviously, Steve didn't have an impact on me to get into animals because I was always working with animals for a decade and a half before I even knew who Steve Irwin was. But I loved his passion for animals so much. And when Steve passed away, and Animal Planet started cutting, Austin Stevens and Mark O'Shea and Nigel Marvin, they started cutting all the shows. I was like, what the heck's going to happen to
Where are
people?
all my heroes going?
Yeah, where are all these things going? And I thought to myself, like, I'm never going to be the next Steve Irwin. I'm never going to be the next Nigel Marvin or Mark O'Shea. But maybe if I start filming my love of animals, maybe I can fill a little piece of that shoe. And then if there's enough of us, we can collectively fill the shoes that he had. And that's when I started YouTubing. And again, that was before monetization. That was before, shows. As a matter of fact, I got picked up by a company called Next New Networks. And it was the first management company for YouTube show. Everyone's like, what's a YouTube show? It's just, you're just putting a video out,
Just making videos.
And so they contacted me and they said, hey, we'll give you $300 a week to make a show, and you have to make this 3 to 5 minutes, never over 5 minutes back then. 3 to 5 minute show. We'll give you $300 a week, and and I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And then the funny thing is later on, Next New Networks ended up getting sold for like $100 million because they were so advanced, And so again, I had been part of that network for a couple years and got monetized and all these other things, and never thinking that millions and millions of people. I think we're at 1.5 billion views now. Never ever thinking that we would get even 1 million views on YouTube. So it's been a wild ride, and I love it. Every day I want to pick the camera up and film. It's like every day I never don't want to film.
I heard you talking earlier today, and you mentioned your current passion, with your reptarium,
Yeah.
And social media, and then soon to come your aquarium.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so, there's two things. Number one, I worked at the pet shop, which was a fish store.
Right.
With a reptile section. So I always loved fish. I love fish, I love reptiles. I think they almost go hand in hand. But I'm definitely more of a reptile guy. Right. But I still love fish. And so there was always this dream, like one day to open up a reptile zoo. And then the bigger dream was to open up an aquarium and reptile zoo together. And there's two reasons for it. Number one, to get the fix of working with all those fish. But the other thing is that I know that there'll be 10 times the people that will want to go to an aquarium than a reptile zoo. So what that does for me, not only is it a good business sense, but more importantly for me is that means I've got 10 times the people I can expose to reptiles when they're in the house. They're coming for the fish, and I'm making them stay for the reptiles, and so it's a win-win situation all around. So we're super excited about it. I've literally put everything that I've ever had into it.
When do you think you're going to be opening?
Well, I'm hoping Santa Claus is going to be good to us this year, and hopefully we'll be open for Christmas. I think if for some reason that doesn't happen, and I will say it's a very aggressive schedule, I mean, everything has to happen perfect to be open for Christmas. If something goes wrong, we will miss that date, but it won't be long after that. You know what I mean? It's there's no world that it's going to be all right for us to be a month late. You know what I mean? So we're going to be somewhere between Christmas, the middle of January, open to the public.
For our viewers, where is this going to be located?
That's in Utica, Michigan, which is just outside of Detroit, a suburb of Detroit, Michigan. Beautiful little city that I love to death, and they treat me great. I mean, the mayor's out all the time helping
Michigan
out.
Always home for you?
Born and raised. I've traveled all over the world, but I'm still always going to be a Michigander, and that's where my family is. That's where my heart is, and that's where I'll be forever.
That's fantastic. I guess one final question is, what do you have to pass on to the next generation? And we saw it here. I talked to you about the other ones I spoke to that came here and were, inspired by you. What do you have to say to the rest of them out there?
Well, I think that, it's like you said, legacy is a lot, right? You know, and that's what I live for right now is legacy. I don't live for money. I don't live for fame. I don't live for anything to do with my personal gain. It's all about legacy, and it's about, passing on the things that I love and believe. And the youth this is the thing, as a 54-year-old guy that has the heart of an 18-year-old, I surround myself with younger people because I believe in them, and I show a lot of faith in not just 18-year-olds, but like Nature Boy Adrian's here. He's 9 years old, and it is talking to him. He's like, you're the future. You've got to pick the torch up when we're gone. And if we're gone 6 months from now, or we're gone, 30 years from now, it doesn't matter. The fact is that it's our point in life to pass that torch. And am I ready to pass it? No, I'm not ready to pass it. I still have a lot of fire left in me. But I think that if I leave this world in a better place and inspire people, not just to love animals, but to love life and to be positive and to have a good outlook on life and to believe in yourself and to step out and do things that you didn't think you could do. And even when everyone is telling you you can't do it, do it. I've lived my life basically defying every single person's advice. All my friends told me I would fail doing a reptile zoo, and yet it's been one of the most insanely successful things I've ever done. All my friends said I'm an idiot for doing an aquarium, and here I am deep. I'm putting everything on the line that I have to do the aquarium, and I want to inspire people to do that. And the other thing I want to do is I want to inspire, kids and adults alike to get out of bed. You know what I mean? Like the people that are struggling right now with whatever it is they're struggling with, I want them to go, if Brian can get out of bed, going through the things he's going through, I can get out of bed and I can go attack the day. And if I can leave that legacy, then I've been a blessed man.
All I gotta say is true inspiration, folks. True inspiration. Brian, thank you so much.
My pleasure, man.
Thank you so much for putting this on and giving us the interview.
It's awesome. My pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, man.